There have been presidents who are very good at feeling the nation's pain. Ronald Reagan, that magnificent speech after this shuttle, the Challenger blew up. Bill Clinton, it was almost a cliche how he would bite his lip and, feel the pain of anybody he was talking to. Barack Obama was a big hugger whenever there was a disaster, and he could give an eloquent speech after a mass shooting or some other kind of tragedy. That was sort of part of their DNA. Donald Trump is not that guy. He never advertised himself as being a warm and fuzzy guy. He's a businessman with a CEO's approach. And when he went to Texas on Tuesday, against the advice of many experts who said he shouldn't go there because it would draw resources away, he handled the trip quite well. He met with the governor and state and local officials and FEMA and gave a sense of being in charge. And he climbed up on the ladder and waved the Texas flag. And talked about how we love you and we're going to do everything we can to get this state back on its feet. But that wasn't enough for some in the media. Now, remember, the media had set up this big test, first big major test of a natural disaster in the Trump administration. Can he handle it? So we don't have, it's early in the process. The devastation there has been overwhelming. Rescuers have been doing the best they can by boat, by helicopter, person by person to get folks to shelter away from these raging floodwaters in the Houston area and beyond. But there haven't been any stories about FEMA screwing up or the government not knowing what it's doing. So now some reporters, as well as more liberal commentators, criticizing the president on empathy. He didn't show enough empathy. He should have met with victims. He should have talked about the loss of life. Well, he could have talked about the loss of life. That is true. This was a trip where mostly he was meeting with officials. He's going back again, or at least he's scheduled to this coming weekend. But it seemed to me that's a moving of the goalposts. It's a little bit of sleight of hand. Well, okay, he did go down there right away, and he does seem to be, sort of planting the flag and letting people know that help is on the way. But he just didn't feel any pain. He didn't show enough empathy. Now, look, there's a certain photo op aspect to all of this. Governors, mayors, presidents, candidates, they put on the windbreaker and the cap, and they go and they want to be photographed, showing concern and leading the rescue efforts. And so had Trump been brought together with some families been rescued, that also would have been good television. But I don't think he should be judged solely on that. And again, this is a guy who was a developer. He built hotels and golf courses. He knows how to manage these kinds of projects. He's not a big hugger. But, my final thought on this is that every president is elected in part in response to the previous president. So while Barack Obama was very good at feeling empathy and projecting a sense of compassion and writing these eloquent speeches, a lot of people in the country felt like he wasn't a very strong leader when it came down to, he drew the red line in Syria when it came to taking decisive action. Donald Trump, nobody accuses him of not taking decisive action, but he doesn't score as high on the empathy scale. I think it's a bit unfair for the press to now obsess on that. I've heard the word again and again and again, empathy, empathy, empathy. Now, in a speech in Missouri yesterday, the president, maybe a little bit of a course correction, did talk about the country praying for those affected by the hurricane and talked about the loss of life. He hasn't done this before. But there's a little bit of, no matter what he says, whether he went, whether he didn't go, where he went, where some in the press who are not fans of this president are going to find something to criticize him on. And I think that we ought to recognize that while he didn't do a lot of hugging, it was a good thing for the country that the president went to Texas and showed that state, and particularly the people in the Houston area, that we care.